Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're continuing on our Oscars category breakdown series, and in today's category breakdown, we're going to be taking a look at the Best Supporting Actor category. If you haven't seen any of the previous videos in this series, there's a playlist on my channel where you can go back and watch. I think this is probably, we're pushing 13, 14 probably at this point on the channel. We're getting close toward the end here. So I do recommend checking some of those videos out. But if you are unfamiliar with that, with this series, what we're doing here, just a quick little rundown. We're going to go through each nominee in this category, each of the actors that are nominated. We're going to give some facts about the actor, and then just talk about the film and the performance that they're nominated for. And then at the end, I'm going to give my personal ranking of each performance, and then my prediction for how likely I think it is that they'll win the Oscar. So, one little quick fact before we get into this. After research, I discovered that all five of these nominees, they combined for 20 nominations, which, initially I knew that they were going to combine for a little bit, but 20 kind of shocked me that it was that high. But they do combine for 20 nominations between the five of them, but only one of them has won an Oscar. So it's very likely in this category that we're also getting another first-time Oscar winner. So without further ado, let's take a look at the nominees. The first nominee that we're taking a look at is Sterling K. Brown in American Fiction. This is Sterling K. Brown's first Oscar nomination. He was also nominated at the Screen Actors Guild Awards and the Critics' Choice Awards this year for his role as Clifford Ellison. Brown is no stranger to award shows, as he has been nominated at the Emmys, SAGs, Critics' Choice Awards, and the Golden Globes for This Is Us. Now, Sterling K. Brown was kind of a little bit of the surprise in this category, if you will, where a lot of people kind of had this narrowed down to maybe 6 different people that were kind of fighting for, or I guess 2 people really were fighting for one slot, and Sterling K. Brown was kind of on the outside looking in. I hadn't seen American Fiction when I made my Oscar predictions, but to me, Sterling K. Brown just kind of felt like a performance, felt like, a Best Picture nominee. Knowing that he's a good actor, I just had a gut feeling, and so I ended up predicting Sterling K. Brown. So, kind of impressed that I got that prediction right. And then after seeing the film, it's pretty obvious to me, like that. Yeah, he deserves to be here. And again, this isn't to say the couple of the other guys that got snubbed didn't deserve it. It's every year only 5 can get in, and there's so many worthy performances. But Sterling K. Brown for me was a performance where, my personal 5, it's very likely that I would have given him the nod. And his performance is, it's a very fun, it's very like interesting performance, right, that he gives in the film, because his character, more so than like a lot of others, because I mean he is truly a supporting. Some of these characters that you're gonna or the actors that we're gonna talk about, their characters in their films are on screen a whole lot more than Sterling K. Brown's. He truly is the supporting role that is kind of pops up here and there, has a couple scenes, but every time he's on screen, he takes control of the screen. He commands the scene. And so at the beginning of the film, the very first moment that you meet Sterling K. Brown, I'm not going to go into any spoilers, but the very first time that you meet him, it's a very emotional scene. It's a very tender scene. And instantly from scene 1 of seeing the film, I was like, oh, okay, so this is what the role is going to be like for Sterling K. Brown. This is why he gets nominated. And then by the end of that scene, it's a complete 180, where all of a sudden he's in a different, it's emotional at the beginning, and then it's like kind of the I mean, he puts some humor in that just kind of cuts the tension of the scene, and kind of is you find yourself emotional, and then you find yourself laughing by the end of the scene, and so he does an excellent job of kind of twisting the knife there. And then for the next who knows how long of the scene or of the film, he just kind of continues on that trend of being kind of the comedic side character. And so then, as I was watching the film, I continued thinking, did he get nominated for a comedic performance? Because, like, that's really cool. But, I was like, usually not a lot of comedic performances are getting nominated at the Oscars. But then, towards probably like the 2/3 mark, it's probably, toward the end of the second act, beginning of the third act, there's kind of a heartbreaking scene with Sterling K. Brown's character. There's kind of a big moment, and then from that point on, he only has a couple more scenes, probably, the rest of the film from that point on. But each time he's on screen, it's very impactful. It's very beautiful. It's tender. There's a scene, at the beach house. It's kind of the next time you see Sterling K. Brown's character. That's a very beautiful, very well acted scene. And then probably the clip that'll probably come, the Oscar clip when if they show him at this year's ceremony. You never know if they're actually going to do the Oscar clips or not. But the Oscar clip probably comes from a scene toward the end of the film where it's between him and Jeffrey Wright's character. They're just having a conversation, and Sterling K. Brown's talking about their father, who's passed away before the movie started, and so he's talking about his father, and that's a scene that I think ultimately that's probably where you're going to get your acting clip from. But there's just so many moments for Sterling K. Brown's character where it starts off very emotional, becomes very comedic, and then finishes as this very poignant and like just tender performance toward the end that ultimately by the end of the film, as much as I like Jeffrey Wright's performance as well in American Fiction, like he obviously does a good job. For me, Sterling K. Brown was kind of the standout of the film for me, and so I'm really glad that he was able to get this nomination. For my personal ranking for Sterling K. Brown, though, I am going to put him in fifth. And then my prediction is I'm also putting him in fifth. I think, he himself has had a quote where he pretty much says, like, he knows he's not winning the Oscar and he's just very excited to be nominated. And so I'm happy for him to get that nomination. But yeah, unfortunately, he is the one that has the hardest, the least likely chance of pulling out the Oscar win. The next nominee that we're taking a look at is Robert De Niro in Killers of the Flower Moon. This is Robert De Niro's ninth Oscar nomination, and he has 2 wins. This is his third nomination in the Best Supporting Actor category. He won in 1975 for The Godfather Part 2. His other nomination was in 2013 for The Silver Linings Playbook. He has 5 nominations in the Best Actor category. He won in 1981 for Raging Bull, and was also nominated in 1977 for Taxi Driver, 1979 for The Deer Hunter, 1991 for Awakenings, and in 1992 for Cape Fear. De Niro's ninth Oscar nomination was in 2020 for producing the Best Picture nominee, The Irishman, also directed by Martin Scorsese. And so I mentioned with Sterling K. Brown, the last nominee that we're taking a look at, talking about him really being a true supporting performance. Robert De Niro, I want to say, I'm trying to think real quick over the other nominees. Maybe there's one other that no, just solely based on the runtime of the film. I think it's very likely that Robert De Niro has the most screen time out of all of the supporting nominees in this category, and he truly is just an intense presence whenever he's on the screen in this film. For the film, it's very the film is interesting in the sense that we're kind of following, and I guess this is maybe a little bit of a spoiler if you haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon, but I think it's been kind of well documented and well advertised, kind of the premise of the film that Robert De Niro's character and Leonardo DiCaprio's character, that they're not necessarily the good guys of this film. Obviously, it's a story about the Osage Nation, the Osage people, but it's told through De Niro and DiCaprio, like from their characters' point of view. So you know that they're involved in this situation. But it's interesting that from the beginning of the film, I mean, and throughout the film, with Leonardo DiCaprio's character, you kind of are always in a little bit of a limbo state, or you're kind of just, it's fluid, your feelings on him and what you think of him as a person, as a character, and is he really this character that it seems like we're painting him out to be, or is there more complexities to him? When you look at Robert De Niro's character, there's not really any complexities to him. There's not really any gray area. You understand who he is. You understand what he's doing, and his role in this scheme and in this plot that's going on and what's happening to these Osage people. You're well aware, and he's just a menacing and just intense. Figure in this film, and there's so many scenes throughout the film that are, it's hard to point out the ones that are like the most menacing or like just the best acting, but a lot of it is just, it's him just having conversations with Leonardo DiCaprio's character. But ultimately, for me, just kind of the standout scene, and probably where you would get your Oscar clip, is from at the end of the movie. It's him in Leo. It's right before. It's the scene right before they go to the court scene, kind of at the end of the film, where they just have a very intense kind of face off and just kind of an intense argument discussion, and it's just the way that De Niro plays this character so stern, so evil, just very menacing. It's it's honestly, it's just very, very impressive. And I think ultimately, I think what's really impressive about Robert De Niro's character in this performance is it's just you talk about, you look at a lot of the films that he's been nominated for, and you look at a lot of kind of the best performances of his career, even like like in The Irishman, didn't end up getting an acting nomination for that, but was just very good in that film. And a lot of what he's doing, he's always doing his best work when he is partnered with Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese is always able to just get the most out of Robert De Niro, and truly this is the best De Niro performance. And I mean, a lot of people really love The Irishman, and I only saw it once, so maybe I do need to rewatch it to know exactly where I think this performance compares to that. But even if you don't count, or if you're saying that this is better than his performance in The Irishman, this is De Niro's best performance in who knows how long. And so Martin Scorsese really was able to just really get an excellent uh, 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 an a sinister, just a very like intense performance out of De Niro. And truly, I'm glad there was some discussion and some debate, I think, kind of in the Oscar race season about De Niro being a potential snub. I'm glad he wasn't the snub and was able to get into this category. So for my personal ranking for Robert De Niro, I am actually going to put him in second, and then for my prediction, I'm putting him in third. The next nominee that we're taking a look at is Robert Downey Jr. in Oppenheimer. This is Robert Downey Jr.'s third Oscar nomination, but he is still looking for his first win. He was nominated in 1993 for Chaplin and in 2009 for Tropic Thunder. Downey Jr. has already won the BAFTA, the SAG Award, the Critics' Choice Award, and the Golden Globe this year for his role as Louis Strauss. And so in yesterday's video, when we're talking about the Best Supporting Actress, we're talking about Da'Vine Joy Randolph and how she has just been a critic sweeper and a precursor sweeper and critic sweeper. It's the exact same thing here in the supporting category here with Robert Downey Jr. And that's why I'm gonna kind of keep pushing back. Like I guess actor is starting to get wrapped up a little bit, but actress is very like up in the air. We're gonna keep pushing those two categories because I don't know what to do yet. I don't know how I'm predicting. I don't know how I'm voting. But in this category, I think I am very confident about. It's I don't know if it's as big of a lock as Da'Vine Joy Randolph is in supporting actress, but Robert Downey Jr. in supporting actor just truly delivered. Again, not to the same level of sinister performance as De Niro as the previous nominee that we're talking about, but he plays a character who goes throughout this film in multiple stages of you're not exactly sure what his relationship is to certain characters, to Oppenheimer or to Albert Einstein. In the film, you don't know exactly kind of what his relationship, what he's doing is, because he's a politician that's using this kind of for his own for his own gain. It is a lot of people with the development of the atomic bomb. A lot of them are just kind of all using it for personal gain and using it for political standing and whatnot. And so Robert Downey Jr.'s character is no different there. He's the same in that sense. And so he throughout the film there's just multiple scenes where you get it's this really intense and real focused performance here from Downey Jr. To the point that I know there was a lot of people that it took them a minute to even recognize that it was that it was Robert Downey Jr. I think probably just because I knew going in, obviously, that it was him. I was very attuned to that from the beginning. But it's just such a strong performance that it is really kind of eventually by Act 2 or whatever, you do kind of lose Robert Downey Jr. He just becomes this character. And so he's another one that's going to have a lot of different scenes that stand out for a lot of people. The biggest and what's ultimately going to be the Oscar clip for him is I've talked about this in multiple videos, where there's the one scene in the film that single-handedly is going to win Oppenheimer like 4 or 5 Oscars, because the score is great on it, the editing's good, the cinematography is good, and then ultimately just the acting from Robert Downey Jr.'s character is just so good in that scene, and it's so it's captivating. And again, because I talk about this with Oppenheimer, in the sense that it's this 3 hour long biopic with a lot of dialogue, and the reason that dialogue works so well is because of the actors delivering it, and because the way that Robert Downey Jr. delivers this dialogue throughout the film, it keeps you engaged. It keeps you, just kind of captured in the moment, and it truly is just it's a phenomenal performance. And then you get to the third act of the film, which I'm not going to really kind of get into too much about what's going on there, but there's kind of, I guess, not really a twist with his character, but just kind of more of a reveal as to the bigger picture of Louis Strauss and his character, for Robert Downey Jr.'s character in the film. Kind of a bigger reveal of who he is, and what his plan all along was within the plot of this story. And he, just in that third hour alone, again, there's a lot of other great scenes, and he has so many great scenes just kind of playing off of Alden Ehrenreich's character in the film. So for me, it's just Robert Downey Jr. was the performance that I think, as soon as I saw it, I remember thinking, like, because when Oppenheimer first came out, a lot of people thought it was going to be this big tech player. Thought it was going to kind of be like Dune, in that sense of it's going to be in all these technical categories. We don't know if it's really going to get much above the line. Robert Downey Jr.'s performance in that was one of the first things that clued me into thinking, oh, this is bigger than just a tech, crafts category player. This is going to be a film that is going to be pushing for multiple Oscar wins, and here we are, I guess, what has it been, 7, 8 months later, and that's exactly where we are, where Oppenheimer is going to win multiple Oscars, and Robert Downey Jr. is going to be one of them. So for my personal ranking of Robert Downey Jr., I am putting him in first, and then obviously I am predicting him to win the Oscar as well. The next nominee that we're taking a look at is Ryan Gosling in Barbie. This is Ryan Gosling's third Oscar nomination, but he is still looking for his first win. He was nominated in 2006 for Half Nelson and in 2016 for La La Land. Gosling's next project is this year's The Fall Guy, which also stars 2024 Oscar nominee Emily Blunt and 2023 Oscar nominee Stephanie Hsu. And so Ryan Gosling's performance here in Barbie, his performance is the one that kind of stands out in this category. I guess kind of similar to Sterling K. Brown in the sense that they're comedic performances. Sterling K. Brown obviously has a lot more emotional development, and it becomes more of a dramatic performance as the film goes on. Ryan Gosling's performance, even though, sure, I guess in a different movie, in a different theme, some of what he's dealing with and going through could have taken a more dramatic turn, and I guess it technically does in the film, but it's still always delivered through a very comedic performance throughout the film, and that's what works so well. That's what sells the performance so well. And so, his performance as Ken in Barbie is truly one of those that I think, if you would have told someone a year ago, when maybe we got, I guess maybe a year ago, we might have had that first teaser trailer, the 2001 Space Odyssey, kind of that not parody, but just kind of that homage trailer that the Barbie released. I think that maybe was out at least a year ago. But if you would have just told us from that point of that trailer that Ryan Gosling, not only was he going to get an Oscar nomination, but he was going to be kind of one of the front runners in the category, one of the sure bets, the locks in the category, for the longest time, I'm sure people would have been shocked and wouldn't have believed you. But truly, he does in this film. He does deliver, one of the performances of the year, one of the best, and it's nice to see the Academy award, comedy. There's certain certain genres, comedy gets in a little bit easier, I guess, at the Oscars. Compared to like horror, for example, but it still doesn't. Comedic performances still don't get in the Oscars enough. I think it's you only usually. I mean, I guess you look at all 10 of the nominees. Really, kind of Ryan Gosling maybe is the only one. I'd have to, or I guess all 20 of the nominees between all 4 categories. I'd have to think about it a little bit more if there is more like just pure comedic performances, but Ryan Gosling might be the only one that really falls in that category. And so it's nice to see him get rewarded for that. And so throughout the film, obviously, he's very comedic. He's very, it's very, fun, and his character takes kind of an interesting direction. Obviously, if you've seen the film, which a lot of people have, there's the moment where they kind of get into the real world, and from that point on, his character takes a different direction, where you think the entire film is just going to be him following Barbie, kind of being his sidekick, Barbie and Ken. But then, just kind of once he gets into the real world, he kind of goes in his own different direction, which I think is able to help him as a character just kind of go into a different realm. And as an actor portraying the character, he's able to just kind of give a different performance than what I think a lot of us were expecting. And then obviously, of course, if you're talking about Ryan Gosling's, his acting, his performance in the film, you have to talk about I'm Just Ken. You have to talk about the musical number. It's very possible that maybe that's the clip that they show, for his acting clip. But I don't think, because it's probably going to be, because it was just announced, I think it was yesterday, maybe a couple days ago, that he's going to perform there was a lot of debate or a lot of discussion of whether he was actually going to perform I'm Just Ken or not at the Oscars, but he has announced that he's going to perform it live at the Oscars, which I always thought was like a no-brainer, because I think I'm Just Ken would have been such an easy, like, because I mean he can maybe do the first verse or whatever, but then you can just bring out a bunch of Kens and just have a bunch of people throughout, singing the film. So I thought it was always a no-brainer that it was going to get done. You don't have to have Ryan Gosling sing the entire thing. But anyway, that's a different a different topic, different story. But ultimately, I think when you look at the acting clip of what Ryan Gosling is going to, what they're going to show, I think ultimately, some of the best acting that he does is kind of, at the end of the film, kind of the climax of the film. Obviously, it's his scenes with Margot Robbie toward the end of the film, where they're kind of coming to a resolution, kind of trying to bring Barbie Land back, kind of get it to restore it to what it was before. And so I think those are some of his better scenes at the end, is just kind of the more like vulnerable performance, which is interesting to say, like a vulnerable performance in such a comedic role, like a comedic performance. So it's not like, he's not opening up and being as vulnerable as, like, a different character might be, like Sterling K. Brown's character does, obviously, in American Fiction, because at that point it's gone full on, it's very serious, it's very dramatic. In Barbie, it never really hits that, like, at least for Ryan Gosling's character. Margot Robbie's character, obviously, it kind of gets to that point of very dramatic acting. But for Ryan Gosling, his Ken is always, it's just very comedic. So again, it's a fun performance. I'm glad it got nominated. A lot of people really love it. It's a lot of people's like favorite performance of the year. I'm glad it got into the Oscars, but just for it being so comedic throughout, I don't know if it really quite reached that level for me. So for my personal ranking of Ryan Gosling's performance, I'm putting him in third. But for my prediction, I do think he is the runner-up. But again, it's such a large space between Downey Jr. and Gosling. And the final nominee that we're taking a look at is Mark Ruffalo in Poor Things. This is Mark Ruffalo's fourth Oscar nomination, but he is still looking for his first win. He was also nominated in 2011 for The Kids Are Alright, 2015 for Foxcatcher, and in 2016 for Spotlight. Ruffalo's next project was supposed to be Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17, but Warner Brothers has tragically pushed it back to January of 2025. And so, in a sense, I guess as soon as I talk about Ryan Gosling being kind of the only comedic performance, immediately we get to Mark Ruffalo, which is another very comedic performance in Poor Things. I think maybe the difference is the reason I didn't think of it initially is because Ryan Gosling's, it's a comedic performance in a comedy. Poor Things, it's very comedic. It has funny moments, but I still think of it, a little bit more of as a drama, as kind of the main thing it is first. But Mark Ruffalo's performance is, it is oftentimes it's pretty comedic, and I think that was something that maybe I wasn't necessarily expecting, just based on kind of some of the trailers I'd seen and just kind of the advertisements that were out for the film before it had really come out, because a lot of it seems like it was going to be Emma Stone kind of being the goofy character, kind of being the quirky, not quite all there character, and then Mark Ruffalo and Willem Dafoe and anyone else that is interacting with Emma Stone's character were just kind of gonna be like the straight man that just is like reacting to Emma Stone, her quirkiness, but. And I do think there is some of that. There is some of that in the film where it is Mark Ruffalo, especially when they're kind of like out in public or when they're like, trying to be presentable, and Emma Stone does things or says things and is just kind of, just not quite, as normal, I guess, as Mark Ruffalo's character would want him to be. She kind of has those extra quirks that come with her character and through, kind of the development that she's had up to that point. And so there is a little bit of that where it is kind of that straight man reacting to that type of acting. But then there's a lot of scenes when they're kind of alone and they're intimate where Mark Ruffalo's character, and this is what really caught me off guard when I was watching the film, how many scenes where Mark Ruffalo's character is the one that seems more immature and seems more goofy, seems more like a child at times than Emma Stone's character. And so that aspect of his performance really kind of, caught me off guard. It was, it was just interesting. There is, if you talk about acting, clips, there's a lot of different. I mean, there's truly a ton of different like scenes that you could take, because he doesn't. I don't know if more so than like any other. Everyone else kind of has like the single scene that's easily identifiable as kind of like the highlight clip, the acting clip for him. I don't know if Mark Ruffalo's character, for me, if he necessarily had a clip that was like, or a scene that was like that. You know, just I'm thinking of like the rooftop scene, the kind of the on the cruise ship, kind of that like the hotel room scene, with like the money. If you've seen the film, you kind of know what I'm talking about. But then, you know, there's also just kind of the scene. It was a big. It was in the trailers a ton of the scene of him just like in the snow, him just sitting on the bench, being very like irked and mad at Bella Baxter. Um, Also, just one of the last, kind of one of. I guess it's not his last scene in the film, but one of the last scenes is when he's kind of in that, in like the, I think it's like a jail cell, when he's kind of in that scene, because that's another scene where he's just kind of an extra level of just, he's starting to go crazy and he's losing his mind and he's just, you know, it's just kind of out there. It's just this performance that I remember watching in the film being like, I wasn't expecting him to be as funny as he was in the film. I thought he was going to be kind of the more, again, like in the roles of comedy, I thought he was the straight man that was supposed to just be being the audience, kind of our shoe into how we would react to Emma Stone's character and the things that she does. But ultimately, you know, Mark Ruffalo, he really was able to kind of deliver that, as well as kind of add on the extra quirky levels and just add on a little bit more, I guess, nuanced, if you will, of a performance. So for my personal ranking of Mark Ruffalo, I am putting him in fourth, and then my prediction is that he'll also finish fourth. And that's it. That's the Best Supporting Actor category. Let me know down below in the comments who you'd like to see win the Oscar on March 10th, as well as just who you think is going to win, who you're rooting for. And then also, while you're down there, let me know of any performances, any supporting actors that you thought could have gotten into this category that ultimately didn't. I know some, obviously Charles Melton, I think, is going to be the name a lot of people are going to talk about. As there was a time where he was. It seemed like it was Downey Jr., it was Gosling, and then it was Melton. It seemed like those were the three that were like the shoe in locks. They were like front runners in the category, and then ultimately it all just kind of fell off for Charles Melton. Honestly, almost like inexplicably, it was just kind of so random. Where all of a sudden Charles Melton just wasn't in the race anymore. But I know he'll be one of the names that people will bring up a ton, as well as like Willem Dafoe, also in Poor Things, was another actor that was like in there a lot. Just let me know anyone else that you would have liked to see get in this category, and then while you're in the comment section, also let me know of what, you know, categories, video breakdowns you would like to see me do next, and then make sure to subscribe to the channel, and then just continue watching. Again, I guess, what are we, 11-ish days or so away from the Academy Awards. So from this point on, from today forward, there's pretty much most likely going to be like a video every single day. So again, subscribe to the channel, and thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.